All right. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Court Ratnowski, the publisher of Yankee Tea News. This, I believe, is session 44, and we're working together here with the Greenwich Stanford Tea Party Patriots. And you can see, perhaps up on the board, our topics this evening. Some headliner things, I guess, I want to throw in. I'm going to mention something called Operation Boardwalk, which is an effort, primarily by people in the state of New York, to personally sue individuals in the boards of education and other public officials who have caused all this angst and suffering for children within the school system, all right? Operation Boardwalk has been kind of moving along. Well, while a group of people have been working on that, who should show up from out of the middle of nowhere? I'm just going to say I love Buffalo, New York. A gentleman named Jim Ostrowski, who is a lawyer out of Buffalo, a libertarian. He's written books, and he has produced his own guide in the same spirit as Operation Boardwalk. So I'm giving you a heads up. There should be, I got to find the link, but we'll put it up, and you can go to his website, contact his office, and so you can get what he's put together. Other people who've spoken of it highly. It's a very clear and succinct summary of basically how to do the same thing as what's been discussed with Operation Boardwalk. So that's big. I had to mention it. Meantime, obviously top of the news is what's going on in Ukraine. So when you go to the link page, you're going to see we got a long list of articles that we've put up here. And the title of the article here is "The Fog of War Only Gets Thicker." And I would add parenthetically, the propaganda gets thicker too. I mean, a lot of people have been telling me, as I've noticed as well, the stories that are being told, they're not making sense, they're not consistent, you're not quite sure where they're coming from, and you can't really draw any firm conclusions about, well, who's really doing better, whether it's the Ukrainian government or Russia. I mean, I don't know. Just to mention a couple of things, you had this video of these Russian soldiers who had been captured and wounded, so they're in a hospital, and you had these guys interrogating them. I think it was from the Ukrainian National News Service. So right off the bat, you have to, just in the interest of objectivity, say to yourself, okay, this is a biased source, but we'll go with it. And they're basically asking them, who are you? Where'd you come from? Why are you here? And there are two things that really come across after listening to about a half dozen of these guys. Young, okay? They're barely out of their teens as Russian army soldiers. They were suddenly rushed to the front. So in other words, they were not prepared. There was no training, okay? There was no sense of mission for these Russian soldiers. They were just told, this is what you're going to do, now go do it. And all of a sudden, they're in the middle of Ukraine and they don't know what's going on, okay? What? Yeah, oh, take the gun and shoot over there. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, that really sounds like a military strategy to me. So, right off the bat, I look at this and say, look, if you compare the Ukrainian people with this, it's a no-brainer. The Ukrainian people have no place to go. This is it, okay? They are motivated. Oh, the cocktail parties. They're the videos of the cocktail parties. Anybody heard of the cocktail parties? That would be the Molotov cocktail parties, okay? Where they're getting together. And here's the fun part. Here's the little tip. If you want to make a Molotov cocktail, what you need is some styrofoam. That's right. So you got to break the styrofoam up into little bits, stuff it into the bottle, and then put in the rag and then the gasoline. So the fun part is you throw it, it breaks, and the styrofoam sticks to whatever it hits. So this is a way of sort of enhancing the capability of the Molotov cocktail. Okay, so you have the whole community of people of all ages, women, children, men, doing these things, okay? Meantime, on the other side, you have confused young Russian soldiers who don't even know what they're doing. So what do you expect? all right? So there's that side of the story. The other part of it, though, is, as one person estimated, Putin has only used about 20% of his force. The other 80% are still on the border. They haven't come in, okay? So in my mind, this almost becomes like a cat and mouse game. And if Putin decides to commit another 20% or 40%, it's gonna probably make a difference. So it's a foot race, right? Supposedly more weapons are going in, people from other countries are coming in, but at some point, Putin's going to have to ratchet up his side of this. So, and in the meantime, we're looking at this and going, what's really happening? Who's got the balance of control here? It's not clear. But so these articles are hopefully helpful. Meantime, we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Newsflash, the CDC screws up again. So they have here a little note, Poison Control Center. They don't necessarily work with the CDC, announcing that some of these COVID tests might make you sick because there's a little chemical in there that shouldn't be there. It's called sodium azide, which, by the way, is used for airbags in cars to help them explode. So what's that doing in a COVID test? Oh, it's a preservative, they say. Well, there are tons of preservatives. Why would you use that as a preservative? Anyway, they say it's dangerous, and we have the link, and I suggest you check it out. So there's that. Meantime, good old Dr. Mercola, he got in some trouble because he's part of the disinformation dozen, right? And but he wouldn't quit. No, he's not going to quit. So he comes up with this one about, I mean, there are a bunch of articles like this. This is the most extensive one I've seen yet, okay? And again, we've got the link up. It goes through a long list of things that can help to detox you against spike proteins. Now, to the censors, the jerks, the fools, and the idiots who work with YouTube, who are going to be considering whether or not I'm violating community standards, I got one for you. The problem is the scientific basis for it is pretty damn sound. So if you want to give me a strike for it, we can have that discussion. All right, here's the hot issue. Up until a certain period of time, not too long ago, it was said that, there's no way that messenger RNA can intercalate itself into the DNA. Can't do it. Well, then some research came along suggesting maybe it's a possibility, all right? So it's one thing, okay, for this sort of reverse coding to take place between the mRNA and the DNA. So then it's worked in, I mean, the DNA version of the mRNA gets worked into the genome. Okay, well, two possibilities. It can sit there and lose certain key sequences that enable it to be expressed. It just sits there quiet. Nothing's happening. Or it goes on to produce. So here's the problem. The original argument that Pfizer and Moderna had made for this vaccine was that there was no way it could work itself into the DNA. Their whole concept was predicated on the belief that if we just inject this properly, then what will happen is the mRNA will find itself into the cell, only a certain amount of spike protein will be produced, sufficient to create the immune response that gives you the protection that any ordinary vaccine would give. That was their presumption. And they've been shown to be wrong in a number of cases, and this is the latest, and probably the worst. Because now the suggestion, all right, in this paper, they show you photographs, okay? I gotta find the link. And they show you how the mRNA works itself into the DNA, then it gets expressed. Now, for all you biology fans out there, there's a little something called the endoplasmic reticulum. It's a very, think of a complex labyrinth, okay? And proteins sort of wander through this labyrinth, and along the way they're being packaged and structured in such a way that the final protein is made. This is different from the ribosomes, or it could be connected. That you could get on a case with me about. In any event, so now you have a system where the spike protein can be continuously produced. There's no reason for it to stop producing, all right? Now you've created a problem you never intended far worse than anything that would have happened from somebody actually getting the COVID. That's the suggestion. That's what the paper is implying, basically. Okay, moving on to the next thing. Okay, here we go. More shadow boxing with corruption in the Connecticut government. All right, so this is from the London paper, The Day. And they take an interesting approach to this. You got to read it. But this guy, Diamantis, who's been caught up in a no-bid contract issue and other issues, and also his daughter, nepotism, other problems. In any event, now you have this getting worse, people standing around saying, how could this possibly happen? You know, we run a clean house around here, said the Democrats. I'll save puking for later. Okay, so this is just adding fuel to the fire in terms of the need to take a look at just how the Connecticut government has conducted itself. But as far as I'm concerned, this is grist for November. Moving on. Okay. Here we go. Protecting politicians from the First Amendment. You're obviously not doing your job as a Democrat if you do not protect politicians from the First Amendment. Okay, we got two guys here. Joe Markley, some of you may know, and Rob Sampson, two stalwart conservatives in the state legislature. Joe Markley used to be there, Rob is still there. And they are fighting a lawsuit that goes back to 2014. Okay, where the State Election Enforcement Commission is saying, you can't criticize politicians when they're running in an election. The First Amendment doesn't mean anything here. So I'm just going to quote what I think is the key part. The decision by Senior Judge Joseph M. Shortall arose from fines imposed against Markley and Sampson by the State Election Enforcement Commission after the 2014 election, when the two candidates sent small portions of their public campaign grants on mailers and advertisements critical of then Governor Malloy's tax and spending record. For this, the SEC is going to fine them? Okay, that's screwed up. That judge is out of his mind. It's like he's never even heard of the First Amendment. Okay, now the other thing, this is of some concern. Steve Bannon and others have been talking about this, okay? Quickly, gerrymandering is a sneaky trick for redistricting. You know, after following the 2010 census, the 2020 census, now we go back and look at how the population has changed. And what you have is the Democrats coming in with lawsuits and other devices in an effort to redraw the maps favorable to them, even if in the state there's a Republican majority in that district. So, you know, what else am I going to say? Okay, next quickly, I need to promote the conservative campaign boot camp that'll be in Norwalk this Saturday at the Norwalk Inn. We'll have the information up, and it is absolutely recommended that people go to these. I've been to events like these before. We have an important election coming up this year, so as many conservatives as possible need to get involved as grassroots activists, campaign volunteers, campaign managers, or even running for office. And this is an important seminar that will explain all the different aspects of how you can do it, and it's an opportunity for people to network and work together. So highly recommended. Then I have to quickly mention in passing, Connecticut COMMIE of the Week. Her name is Jan Hochadel. She's the president of the Connecticut American Federation of Teachers. Now, she also was one of the recipients of the 2021 Good Communist Award, better known as the Amistad Awards. And yeah, the thing that gets me is they are very clever. They don't sound like communists. They don't come across as communists. But as you listen, you can see that they're weaving Marxist ideas into their comments. And so you have to sit there and unweave it. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to bring up, for which we have the link, there was an interesting article. I don't know if it's a former prime minister for Hungary. His name is Viktor Orban.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, okay. So he did a speech where he's warning people about Agenda 2030. This is like the next level. This is where you really see a global attempt at digital surveillance, digital passports and things that will, ultimately serve to watch every move you make and, find ways to intimidate you anytime you, quote, step out of line. So just to mention other two quick things, I'll have to get the links up for this. We have a series of potluck dinners going. Lori Brodigan, the mother of potluck dinners, is going to be having one in a couple of weeks. And then the other thing, of course, is the U.S. truck convoy overpass rallies. So we want you to see those as well. So that's it, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, thank you.